And we're back. All right, episode 169. Nice. Of Backpacking America. That's right. We got two episode 69s existing in the BPA universe. That is incredibly based, grill pilled, and Johnny Sins pilled. Anyway, that's enough sex jokes. I'd like to announce there's something very exciting. I'm affiliated with a couple of cannabis companies. One of them is Jackson Cannabis, or on their website, just known as Jackson. Some of these products here you can't get in New York, sadly, but some of them you can because they are legalized under federal cannabis laws as they qualify as hemp. So, if you see something you like, I encourage you to check it out and see if it ships to New York. If it doesn't ship, try something else. For our residents that are able to get, Jackson products, for our residents, I'm sorry, for my listeners, they're able to get Jackson products in your state. Enjoy. They have some beautiful stuff. They have CBD moon rocks, keef. They have hemp flower, hemp smalls, hemp reggies, keefed hemp flower, indoor hemp flower, pre rolls, flower trim, and everything's cheap too. Like you can get a queue of this stuff for like $30. It's really awesome. Really great company. If you want to use my code, you save 15% on your order. So my code is CANNA15. It is CANNA 15, and that is how you save 15% on your purchase overall. Let me know what you think of it, and if you had any issues or whatever. This is my first time doing some type of an affiliate thing, so definitely let me know how it goes. I'm very curious to see. Um, Excuse me while I readjust my very, very small chair. I need a more comfortable chair. If you purchase marijuana from this company, maybe I could buy a new chair. Anyway, or just buy some of my merch. That would be cool too. But anyway, I digress. We're going to talk about the Ukrainian-Russian tensions going on in the world today. And as you could probably figure out from the title of my video, I'm going to talk about why I think NATO is bad for America. So I personally don't want war between America and Russia for a multitude of reasons. First, we couldn't beat a bunch of guys in like caves fighting with Soviet era equipment. Uh, we're not gonna fight and win against another country. It's just not gonna happen. A lot of the NATO members in Europe don't want to fight. Ukraine doesn't even really want to fight. They're barely even holding control of the rest of their country. Um, Another reason why I don't want to fight is because I see the Azov Battalion, which is a fascist military, like a paramilitary group that just got deputized into the actual Ukrainian armed forces. And when I say fascist, I'm not throwing it around like random right wingers. I'm saying like actual neo Nazis. Like they fly Nazi flags and fire machine guns at Russians. Like that serious. Like there's actual video of that. Um, yeah, not fun times. Not fun times. I don't want to play that video because I don't want to have my Instagram taken down. So unfortunately, you're just gonna have to look that up on YouTube yourself. I also okay. So for the more concrete reasons, though, NATO's just like a huge drain on American budgetary concerns, and productive capability. So we have to finance and produce a lot of the military equipment of European nations and NATO member states. And, that really puts a dent in our defense budget and our obligations that we could otherwise use to benefit our country. So we're literally giving away our resources, our productive capabilities, and more importantly, our money to foreign governments so they can have some sort of a military, even though they don't really care about having one. So that's why I don't really think NATO benefits us necessarily. It's more we benefit NATO. We benefit NATO. And in this instance, a lot of NATO doesn't want to fight in Ukraine. They don't want a war with Russia. They remember what happened when Russia won the last war, and they're terrified of that again. And they don't want to see that. I mean, Germany is very cautious about this whole scenario. There was actually a German naval commander that resigned over the prospect of war with Russia, saying it was an immoral war. And I don't blame him. And I think, any German that's like, yeah, we should fight on the side of NATO, really needs to meditate and visit a mass grave uh, of their, countrymen from 1945 and really just contemplate, do you want to do this again? Do you really want to do this again? No. So don't, please don't do this. Um, it's going to be bloody. It's going to be costly. And a lot of Americans are war weary. War weary. There was an interview done by like a local Fox News channel outside of one of the Marine bases. I think it was outside of I'm blanking on the name, but there's like a Walmart at the base, and they were just interviewing some soldiers and family members and stuff. Just gathering last minute supplies before deployment, and they were just like, yeah, like we're terrified of this. We really should mind our own business, but we're gonna be here for our country, I guess. Um, the more jingoistic ones were terrified, and the family members were like, "Why are we doing this? Let's just call it quits right now. This isn't our country that we're fighting for. We're fighting for Ukrainians, not for Americans." So that's a huge thing. A lot of Americans definitely feel that way as well and share that sentiment. Like, why are we going to die for Ukrainians? There's really no, especially after what happened with Afghanistan. I mean, we just got out of a 20-year war, and the government's like, okay, who can we mess with now? Who can we mess with now? Just to keep the arms race going. And it's look, it's a dangerous game they're playing, because now they failed at terrorism, but they're gonna try and attack China and Russia, because China and Russia are now best friends again, and they're both going to fight, a global war against American hegemony. And there's two ways this can go. I mean, we spent since like the 80s getting involved in wars that had no real political, economic, or strategic value to us. And we could even argue the last 50 years. And it's hurt our country exponentially. Rent has increased over 50% throughout the entire country. It's impossible to find a place to live. Our highways are in constant disrepair. We have no public infrastructure. We have no trains. We have no, national airways or ships or, national train system. We don't have anything public transit wise, so naturally our roads get abused more. We don't have a national bus system. It's just, there's a lot of things that we could build. There's a lot more public works projects we could build. We could employ people in, something similar to the Civilian Conservation Corps, which was used to put unemployed people to work during the Great Depression on public works projects like highways, dams, bridges, tunnels, railroads, mines, that type of thing. But we don't do that anymore. Instead, we have, endless wars where it's like, yeah, if you want to, do something, join the army, or, good luck doing something in the private sector, I guess. It's asinine to me that we don't even have these, we don't even have, the common sense to just say, okay, you know what? We got our asses handed to us geopolitically. It's been about 20 years since America has had some sort of a geopolitical victory. We just got our asses handed to us by the Russians and the Chinese in the Olympics in total medal count and in gold medals. I really think that, that the Olympics are symbolic of a country's performance and stance if there was a war. I see the Olympics as a war without bloodshed. And the Chinese won, and the Russians won. And I don't think this is a war America is ready to chew off. I think America needs to retreat from this. I don't think, we should drag NATO into this, because this is us trying to drag NATO into it. The NATO nations don't even really want to be NATO. They just want the military funding so they could actually afford, like healthcare and all this other crap that America can't have, because we want to fund NATO countries. We can't have universal healthcare because we have to spend like $300 billion on our NATO members. I like what Trump said, where NATO has to meet the minimum 2% funding, but what else do we give them in addition to that 2%? You know, I don't think we should be funding any other foreign military. They could use that against us, and they already do that in the Afghanistan. They've sold some of our equipment to China because the Taliban knows they can't, maintain that level of equipment. They don't have the infrastructure for that. So, they're selling stuff off to the Chinese or the Russians or whoever could use it against America. And that's dangerous. It's really dangerous. Um, we've fucked up so many times geopolitically. And at the end of the day, this is empire. You know, it's not a republic, where we can kind of just, vibe on our own and say, fuck the rest of the world, let's be isolationist. Um, in a way, it's terrifying. It's terrifying because we have to sacrifice so many things to maintain this empire that's not really even doing anything for us. It's really fucked up. I think that, I think that if we do go to, and this is the thing too about Russia, where the media is really trying to war hawk it, where they're like, oh, the Russians will stage a false flag attack and blah blah blah, or oh, new intelligence says the Russians can attack at any minute, and they're really beating the war drum and trying to manufacture consent, saying the Russians have camps and execution sites set up, and they're gonna kill gays. They don't have camps. The Russians don't have camps, and this isn't like they're trying to apply like Soviet caricature to modern Russia, and it's just not true anymore. It's just not. It was never true to begin with in the Soviet times, but it's especially not true in Russia now. The whole reason why the Russians want Ukraine to be neutral is so they have a buffer zone between the Western powers and between Russia, which was agreed upon in the 90s when the Soviet Union collapsed and the new Russian Federation was like, hey, listen, like, can you guys just not expand NATO anymore? Because, like, that kind of freaks us out, and you denied our, attempt to join NATO in the first place. So obviously you're doing some weird stuff and you don't want us around you. So can you please just, like, give us a little buffer, and, we won't mess with the Eastern European states if you won't mess with the Eastern European states. America said sure, and then 5 years later they said fuck you, and then NATO expanded east. So the Baltic states joined, Poland joined, I think Romania joined. There was a lot of eastern states that did join, and Russia feels threatened because it's like, great, now we have all these nations at our border or are trying to join NATO, and now what are we going to do? So they feel cornered. And they are building up troops on the border of Ukraine, but to send a message like, hey, look, like, you guys are pushing our borders to the point where it's like we're surrounded. And for those of you that don't know, NATO nations have nuclear missiles. Like, the United States moves its nuclear missiles into Western and Eastern European nations that are friendly. So as each nation falls to NATO, an American nuclear missile is placed in its territory. An ICBM, an IRB, those type of things. IRBM, those missiles are placed closer and closer to Russia. So Russia's naturally freaking out. I mean, we almost melted the entire world when the Soviet Union did the same thing in Cuba. We almost said, we're going to destroy you, the whole world. We're going to take you all down with us because you wanted to put a nuclear missile in Cuba. So it's completely understandable if we look at it in that context. God fucking damn it, I hate being tired. So anyway, the whole thing is justifiable on the Russian end, and we're still trying to pursue this empire and these goals. Like, we're winning wars all over the place, but we just got our asses handed to us in Afghanistan. We lost trillions of dollars in that, and our war games even show that we wouldn't last well against Russia. Within the first couple of weeks, or maybe I think within the first week, we'd lose like 150,000 men, 60,000 American and the rest combined NATO forces. and the Russians would lose 60 to 70,000 men. We're talking about like World War One level attrition here, and that's going to completely destroy any credibility in this war. It'll be the shortest war fought because we're so not used to fighting wars like that. And I think when the American and Russian public both see, and the Western European public both sees how destructive this is, they're gonna pull out. There's just no way. And at that point, NATO's gonna break. NATO is literally like NATO shouldn't even really exist because it was under the pretext of fighting communism in Europe. It's literally the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. So basically, like, it was designed to counter the Warsaw Pact, which was an alliance of military and economic sorts between communist countries. And once the Soviet Union fell and the Russian Federation applied to join NATO, it was like, okay, there's no need for this anymore. And NATO was just like, yeah, we're going to reject Russia so they can continue its existence and keep those arms contracts flowing. But it costs American taxpayers so much money and puts our lives in danger for this ruling class to be like, oh, yeah, NATO, NATO, NATO. A fun fact about NATO, actually, we used former Nazis as leaders of Western militaries. Western militaries. In Germany, they used former Nazis. In America, former Nazis built our rockets. We did that. And, that's what NATO really is. It's a power thing. It's not like a moral arm. It's just a power thing. And, I'm not saying the Warsaw Pact was completely innocent either. Trust me, they wanted those Nazi scientists for themselves, too. But it's not like, like the existence of it and how it's founded is mostly used as an arm of anti-communism and anti-Russian sentiment. And it's mostly to keep imperialism in Europe going. Asia, it's harder to do because we never had a strong presence in Asia, but in Europe, we're holding on to it like dear life because that's, those alliances, those economic ties, those trade ties, those military ties, that's very important to maintaining our control in Europe. And if that slips away, American hegemony's over. And honestly, you know what? It would probably do us some good, especially if we had like a popular government in charge. I mean, looking at the 2024 predictions, it's so bleak. It's between Nikki Haley and maybe Hillary Clinton, or Trump is going to run again, maybe. I don't really know, but I know Hillary Clinton is being tossed around again. I know Pete Buttigieg wants to run again. It's just so bleak. It's stuff that I think after the Biden administration's failures of the last 2 years, I don't think the Democrats are going to win. And if the Republicans win, it's going to be really bad. The war is just going to come home again. We'll end all the wars abroad, that's for sure. If the Republicans win, I feel like we will have isolationism again. But I see all those soldiers coming home, and then what's going to happen? Because we're still not going to address our home problems if the Republicans win. I could see, like, ending the wars abroad, definitely, but then what do we do when we come home? That's what I can see the Republicans doing. I don't think this is going to result in nuclear war. I don't think Russia, all the stuff they're saying about Putin being an evil dictator trying to conquer the world, I don't think that's true at all. Like I said before, it's really just trying to contain NATO's influence from spreading further onto the borders of Russia, because Russia's main advantage historically has been Belarusia, the Baltic states, and Ukraine, and that landmass has been able to be used for centuries is a means of giving invading armies attrition. So basically wearing them out over thousands and thousands of miles to the gates of Moscow and then pushing them all the way back because they were able to wear out the armies of the invaders, because they have to cross over 4,000 miles of land to get to the capital of Russia. And that's why, Russia's freaking out, because it's like, oh my God, if Ukraine joins, that's fucked. And, some people will say, oh, well, it's Ukraine's right to join NATO. Yes, it is Ukraine's right to join NATO, but it's also the right of Donetsk, the Donetsk People's Republic, and the Luhansk People's Republic to separate from Ukraine because they don't feel like they're Ukrainian. And in those separatist areas, it's mostly ethnically Russian. They voted to join Russia. They wanted to be Russian citizens, and they were denied. And these are why these uprisings happened, 10 years ago. So now here we are, and it's like, okay, the Ukrainians want to, reunite those separated areas, which I can understand. And NATO and, Ukraine is thinking about joining NATO, which is within their right. But the problem is that the West shouldn't even be getting involved. And Ukraine can't even join NATO because they still have border contestations. They have, border conflicts already. So a rule of joining NATO is if you don't have solidified borders with no conflict whatsoever, you can't join NATO unless those conflicts are resolved. So allowing them into NATO would be a direct breach of NATO terms. So essentially, you would be violating the terms of what NATO is, and it's obviously like a power grab. It's not meant to secure peace. It's meant to secure the dominance of American financial capital. And this quest for constant domination is going to bite us in the ass because we're going to lose hundreds of thousands of people, and our gas prices are going to go even higher. I mean, we're already feeling the punch because here's the thing. We have to supply Europe's gas now because Russia and Europe share two pipelines of oil. A majority of NATO European countries buy their gas and oil from Russia, and the pipelines are fueled all throughout these countries. So Russia is shutting down oil production and strangling Europe, and that's strangling us, right? That's strangling the working people of Europe. So then what the working people of America have to sacrifice is even more cost at the pump so we can take the oil that we buy and produce and send it to Europe so that way they can, drive their cars and they can fly their planes and fuel their trains and buses and trucks. But we can't. We're doing everything for Europe. Everything for Europe at the cost of our freedom and expense. It's almost $4 a gallon where I live. There was one economist, I think he's an alarmist. He's saying, oh, gas could go as high as $7 a gallon. I don't think it's going to get that. I could see $4.50, and that's enough to cause a lot of discontent. So we're doing all this stuff for Europe because we want to go to war with Russia and China. That's going to be terrible for us. We're going to have to ration food. We're going to have to ration gasoline. We're going to have to bring back the victory speed limit of 35 miles an hour to ration gas. We're going to have to bring back victory gardens. We're going to have to do so many things that Americans aren't even accustomed to. Like, our people are just not accustomed to, these rough wartime conditions where it's just we have to ration our day to day. It's much different than just being poor. It's like actually like the war effort requires this amount of meat, latex, rubber, steel, coffee, cigarettes, alcohol, meat, poultry, vegetables. So, okay, somehow the people have to come up with a deficit of this. And considering we have a worse government than we did in 1933 when Roosevelt came to power, it's going to be a lot harder. It's going to be individualized. Oh, here's the recommended way of rationing. If you fail, sorry. No, like the government helped you ration. I have ration cards. I have my grandfather's ration cards from 1941. And it's like you can only get like a certain amount of coffee a week, a certain amount of soap a month, these types of things. But it's not going to be like that. It's going to be confusing and worse than the COVID situation. We're almost at 1 million dead Americans. Rent is up 50% nationally. Gas is becoming unaffordable. Prices are getting out of control. It's more expensive to eat at the grocery store and to eat out. I mean, it's going to get unaffordable, and now we want to tap a war on top of this? It's almost like they want to destroy the United States of America. And everyone should be against war. This war. Biden needs to pull out. Biden needs to leave the Ukrainian situation alone. We need to retreat within the self. We need to take care of our nation. We need to build our infrastructure. We need to have an army of labor to revitalize the entire country and give employment, new and affordable housing. We need to do all of this so that way we can actually move forward as a society. We don't need war to see profit and to see economic stability. We need the development and expansion of the means of production and its efficiency. So that means building new factories, building new hospitals, building new schools, building new buildings, building parks, building railways, bridges, tunnels, planes, trains, automobiles, everything. There's so many things that need to be done to modernize this country. We'd have enough work for the next 50 years if we just actually created federal programs to incentivize moving forward with these. We don't have that right now. I'm not saying this as a means to say I'm anti-American. That's why, and I love Russia. I'm saying this to protect America, because if we go to war, we're destroying America. This country's just done. It's done. Even if it doesn't go hot, hundreds of thousands of people will be brutally murdered, and it's gonna be terrible, and it'll go on for a very long time, and it will be for nothing. It'll be absolutely for nothing. It'll be absolutely for nothing. Two nuclear powers, no, three nuclear powers going to war with each other. Actually, no, not even. Russia, China, and the entirety of NATO are all nuclear in some capacity. So, what's going to happen? Are we going to get atomized? Are we going to have restraint? I know the United States wants to use our bombs. It's been brought up in multiple war games. If we take significant losses, can we use nuclear missiles? Those are questions asked. That's terrifying. And the United States military is so used to, losing like one or two servicemen is a massive catastrophe, that, losing battalions in a day, how do we view that? How is that going to be looked at? It's awful. It's really awful. And it's just like mind blowing. Oh, and we have a greetings from Switzerland. Hello, Swiss_R. How are you? What's your opinion on the whole Ukraine Russia thing? Um, so we're gonna see what their opinion is of the whole Ukraine Russia issue, but he said doing good. Okay, that's interesting. I don't. Oh, hope you're doing good too. Oh, thank you. I'm doing good too, Swiss_R. Thank you, fellow Swiss. Well, actually, no, I'm not Swiss. I don't know why I said that. I'm very tired, by the way. If it sounds like I'm rambling, but here every man has to join the army to protect peace. I was in the Air Force. Yeah, I mean, I don't even necessarily have an issue with I mean, I have an issue with the draft. America's a little different in the way that we conduct our military. But I understand why the Swiss have a draft, because you guys have to maintain your neutrality and you're a very small nation. So I understand that and I respect it greatly. My whole thing, I'm basically talking about Russia and Ukraine and how the potential for NATO to get involved would be harmful for all NATO powers, especially the United States. Um, the United States really would suffer economically from this, and a lot of people would lose money, jobs, and our cost of living would increase drastically to where it's even worse now. There's going to be so much more homelessness and so much more desperation, and your only hope is to either join the army and hope you survive in the Russian onslaught, or that we pull out within the first week, because within like the first week we're going to have hundreds of thousands of deaths. Modern warfare is so destructive now that it's going to be unimaginable. We thought World War II was terrible. We're so used to these counterinsurgency operations as well that we don't. We're so used to these counterinsurgency operations. This is what I was saying before, that losing one or two men is a major catastrophe. And don't get me wrong, any life lost in war is. But we're talking about losing entire divisions in a day of men, thousands of men a day, for nothing. For what? What's the purpose? Why do I care what the Russians or the Ukrainians do? Let them kill each other over there. Let them kill each other over there. If Germany's doing some stupid shit, let them go do their stupid shit. Who cares? Are they dropping bombs on us? No. The only reason they're attacking us is because we're attacking them. Just leave them alone. I guarantee you, too, they won't even have to drop a bomb on us. They can hack us. Cyber warfare is so advanced now, they could just shut this whole fucking country down. And then what are we going to do when our electric shut off? Everyone on ventilators and in surgery and in need of life support, they're all going to die. Thousands of people are going to die. Disabled people are going to die. Elderly are going to die. And then it's going to slowly work its way up through the rest of the working class. How long can you survive without food? There's certain areas in this country without electricity, there's no life. And it's devastating. The ruling class doesn't even care about us. I mean, these are all things they consider, and they said, okay, we're projecting probably, and this is me making this number up, but I'm just assuming this is a scenario they ran through. We're expecting about 3 million American casualties, probably from this area, that area, and this area. Here's their economic value. Here's some other areas where we could lose millions of people and the likelihood of losing them. We think this is economically still viable, and this is an amount of people we're willing to lose in response to the economic effects of it. We think it's affordable, and we can lose 3 million people and a hit this big in the economy. And that's how they look at it. They don't look at it as their fellow countrymen. They don't look at it as their fellow, even man, just as human, let alone patriotism. Forget all that, just as a human. They don't even view us like that. They view us as expendable resources. And it's to the point where capitalism is so bloated that, we're no longer seen as workers freely exchanging our self as a piece of production voluntarily for a set wage and hours and such. They see us as a tool they can use to exploit and annihilate us, and they're fine with that because it makes them richer. Russians don't want this. Ukrainians don't want this. Swiss don't want this. Germans don't want this. Poles don't want this. No one wants this. Americans don't want this. We especially don't want this. We're so tired of war. We've been at war I'm 23 years old. We've been at war for 21 years of my life. The guys that fought in Iraq that were like 20 or 21 when I was a kid are in their mid to late 40s now. Swiss_R says, make love, not war. Yeah, I agree, man. Like, it's just, it's such a common thing, but it's not profitable, unfortunately. And even, I would say, oh, we need socialism. And I do agree, we need socialism to guide us to peace, real socialism. But then I look at examples like China, where they invaded another socialist nation, Vietnam, over a border dispute. This is brotherhood. This is socialist unity, and you betray your brother by going to war over dirt? Wasn't it Mao Zedong that said, land is replaceable, but men is not? How could you do such a thing? This is why, it really comes down to we need to just focus on it ideologically. Whatever government comes next after this one, because the current neoliberal order is collapsing. Whatever government comes after this has to look at it like we have to retreat within the self and be isolationist, be neutral, and focus on building our country. We could be a super Switzerland. We are a massive country separated by 2 massive borders. If we stabilize and we focus on ourselves and we build up a military for self-defense with layered defenses throughout the country, there would be no way they could stop us. There would be no way anyone could invade us because we would be able to defend our massive land space. But unfortunately, the people in power are too greedy to see that. So I thoroughly stand against the whole war in Ukraine. I believe that, we as a people need to focus on ourselves. And this is going to result in hundreds of thousands of deaths. And it's going to make the life of an average American awful. Just awful and abysmal. Thank you guys, everyone, for listening to another episode of Backpacking America. I apologize for being a little tired today. Make sure that, if you use Jackson Cannabis, You use my code CANNA15, that's CANNA 15, for your 15% discount code. And make sure you check out my shop on Threadless BPA Podcasting for your hoodies, your shirts, your mugs, your stickers, your backpacks, everything you could have ever wanted. And make sure you check out my boy Innate Cleaning on Instagram. He will finesse your house. He will clean and scrub and make love to those floors and walls like you've never seen it before. It will be better than pornography, I swear to God. Everyone, thank you again so much for listening to Backpacking America, and